And I'm grateful as always to know that my ideas, they kind of come sometimes from nowhere. And a lot of times they come from very clear places, like in the middle of a therapy session. Like the idea for this video came. A lot of times I just kind of like wake up with an idea or go to sleep with an idea, talk to my wife and I have an idea. And that's how I'm blessed. I'm lucky and grateful that I could offer what I know, learn, and discover to you guys. And it's so nice to see all of you guys, Lainey, Frau, Randall, Laura, Stephanie, Heather, P, Juniper. Wow. So I'm going to take questions, maybe for about 15 minutes, about the topic of the video. Please don't give questions about what to do. I call those stories because those questions are really important questions, but they're more appropriate for like a consultation or a therapy session. And very rarely could I answer really complicated questions anyways without knowing much. So so please ask a question, and also make sure that every question has a question mark. Because I get a lot. If you look at what I see, it's a lot of comments coming up and then moving forward. And this way I can focus on it and be able to see it and answer it. So with that said, I will take some questions, and if not, I will get back to work. For me, it is in the middle of the day. It's 12:21 in British Columbia, Vancouver Island, Canada. So got a lot to do. Hello, Intelligentsia Rising. So nice to see all of you guys. So Juniper, you're asking a question, is it gaslighting? I don't know what that, hi, Sarah. I don't know what the question is. So if you can ask the question in a full statement, I would try to answer it. So Delilah, that question is a very complicated question because gaslighting, pathological narcissism, SLDD or self-love deficit disorder are very complicated. And so to ask what's the best way to deal with gaslighting from abuser is the number one advice I have is understand what you have control over. And the only person you have control over is yourself. You've never, an SLD or a codependent has never been able to control the narcissist. And if you understand that, then the only person that's going to respond to any form of intervention is yourself. With that said, if you are being gaslit, the first thing you want to do is learn as much as you can, secretly and privately, because it's dangerous to for the narcissist to catch you. And as you secretly educate yourself, then start to reach out to former friends or family who you have been convinced or gaslit to isolate from, or the narcissist burned those bridges, and ask for help. And then find a psychotherapist who specializes in gaslighting. And then the rest of the solution is complicated, but that psychotherapist will know how to help you. Okay, Kathy asked the question, have you ever heard of a narcissist change for the better? Narcissists, as I describe in my Human Magnet Syndrome book, and please check it out because you can learn a great deal from it, have personality disorders. And if you have a personality disorder, you don't think you have a problem. You tend to blame everyone else for your problem. And therefore, you don't seek help, psychotherapy, or counseling. And should you go to counseling, You're very fragile. And if the therapist disappoints you, confronts you, holds you accountable, you will quit and you will say something and feel and about how bad the therapist is. So the bottom line is, someone with a personality disorder often, like 95 to 90, I would say 98 to 99% of the time, cannot get better. And if you understand that, then if they look or seem like they're getting better, they're faking. Okay, I am looking for questions. Valeria, how can I help my child deal with the trauma when I'm trying to best deal with mine? Valeria, there's a saying that I've learned and use all the time. You know, when you and it's not mine, but when you fly in an airplane and the oxygen mask falls down, you put one on yourself, then your child, because if you should pass out, then you're no help to anyone. So if you want to help your child, you must do everything for yourself to gain strength, freedom, and power and control. And from there, you are able and more, the probability of success in helping your child is much higher. Stephanie, how does someone handle gaslighting in a group such as setting or such as a party or gathering? Stephanie, the same answer applies. Is everything that I do and everything I write about explains that SLDD, self-love deficit disorder, which is my term for codependency, is a symptom of much deeper psychological problems. And that you cannot, and what is known as SLDD or codependency are just like behavior patterns. And psychotherapy has not worked because if you work on the symptoms or the behaviors and not the deeper psychological processes that create them, you can't solve it, you can't escape it. Well, the same goes for gaslighting. If you are going to handle gaslighting in a group setting such as parties or gathering, first is you have to understand, and it goes back to George Bernard Shaw saying, never wrestle with pigs, you'll get dirty. And besides, pigs like it. And that's to understand that you can never really take on a narcissist or a gaslighter and be successful. And the best way to overcome that type of power, control, abuse is to find the reason why you stay with that person, why you socialize with these people, and why you have to be with them versus break free. Because that answer is the answer for your solution. You can't do anything when you're in a group of gaslighters. You can't do anything with a gaslighter that is going to stop it. And if you are a victim of gaslighting, it will only make it worse. So the best thing you can do is work on yourself and the underlying concerns, which are specifically talked about in my book, The Human Magnet Syndrome. And again, it looks like this. And I have a library of full-length educational seminars. This is different from YouTube. YouTube is my 15, 20-minute excerpts or just little ideas. Some are big ideas. And there is a vast amount of information on what is self-love deficit disorder, why do people have it, and how to overcome it. And you can find that at selfloverecovery.com. And it just happens to be, we have a holiday sale, which I believe is 20%, maybe 25, but you'll see that on the homepage at selfloverecovery.com. Looking for questions. I'm not going to get to everyone's questions. I wish I could, but General Veers, if someone is a gaslighter, can you counter gaslight with any effect? Well, General, everything I talk about is you don't wrestle with pigs. You don't fight narcissists, because if you're going to fight a boxer in a boxing ring, and you are not a boxer. That's not very smart. You're going to get your ass kicked, predictably. If you're going to compete in a math contest with an engineer and you're a therapist, that's not very smart. So you don't want to fight a person that can easily disarm you, overpower you, and mentally control you. So that presumption underlies everything I say is don't fight. Find a way to overcome the reason that you always want to fight, that you're always pulled into the wrestling ring, and which is your self-love deficit disorder, your codependency, and work on that. Because the only solution to gaslighting, narcissistic abuse, is to fix the person, the only person that can get fixed or wants to get fixed. So Dynamite Dill asks, is the pyramid for narcissists is the same as SLDs? So I have a what I call self-love deficit disorder pyramid there's an animation on YouTube. If you search Rosenberg pyramid animation, you'll see it. And it very succinctly illustrates my pyramid. After writing that or producing that video, I came to understand that narcissists have the same pyramid, but everything is much, much more severe. Frau, can you ever believe someone who has gaslighted you once? So, Frau, my personal and professional opinion is the same. If someone lies to you, cheats on you, is physically abusive to you, it means it's inside of them. Therefore, it's not what they did, it's who they are. If someone gaslights you, that's almost criminal. And that requires a certain type of psychological profile that is disturbed. So if someone once gaslit you and said they won't anymore, it's probably because they got caught. And like a lot of narcissists are cowards. Therefore, I would never, ever, ever believe a former gaslighter's promises to not gaslight you, because as I said before, pathological narcissists are often mostly gaslighters, and people with pathological narcissism have a personality disorder, and personality disorders are largely incurable. Valeria says, I'm struggling with empathy. Having a covert narcissist as a partner is taking a toll on my daughter. Well, first of all, Valeria, the problem is not empathy. One of the terms that I absolutely have a great objection to is this whole community of empaths. That is a candy-coated, feel-good name for a very serious disorder that legitimizes someone's self-love deficit disorder or codependency and totally blames the other person. To be empathetic is a good thing. It also, you can be an SLD or codependent and be empathetic. So it says, if you're struggling with empathy, empathy is not the problem. Empathy is, why would you be struggling with empathy for a covert narcissist? You don't want to have empathy for someone who's trying to destroy you. You should be struggling with empathy, and that's a good thing. You should both find a therapist. You first, considering what I said earlier about the whole, the analogy that if you're on a airplane ride and an oxygen mask falls down, take care of yourself first. Laura, can you go into trauma building a bit? No, this is not a training. This is not a seminar. I have short, concise videos on YouTube, and I also have full-length 6-hour seminars on my selfloverecovery.com site. I just released, and it's the first time I've done this, information, a seminar that's based upon my future book. It's called Tips, Tools, and Strategies to Overcoming Narcissistic Abuse. And you can find it on the website selfloverecovery.com, and it talks very specifically on what to do to escape, and that is at selfloverecovery.com. I don't mean to be rude to your question, but a lot of people, and I don't blame any of you guys. You guys are struggling and your problems are complicated. And anyone who wants to reduce them into a simple equation of don't do this or do this is cheating you, is giving you bad advice. Everything that you're going to have to do to solve either gaslighting, narcissistic abuse, codependency, or what I call self-love deficit disorder, requires a deep, honest inner look at you and why we SLDs, we codependents, make choices to be in relationship with narcissists, make choices to stay in them, because a person who is gaslit made a choice to be with a pathological narcissist that if they were not an SLD and they were self-love abundant, it never would have happened. And since that is a psychological fact, then the only thing that is going to help is to resolve self-love deficit disorder, codependency, and become the cure, what I call the codependency cure, self-love abundant. I have a great deal of video resources at selfloverecovery.com that explains exactly this and more. Okay, what do we got here? Marianne, why is that separation is so difficult? The gaslighting was so effective. Marianne, one of the things I teach in all of my work is that SLDD or codependency is an addiction. It is an addiction that comes from us. We are addicted in ways that make SLDs, codependents, are addicted to a relationship. If they're not in a relationship, they experience terrible pathological loneliness. That is the withdrawal symptom of the addiction. We're not addicted to narcissists. We're addicted to relationships. It's the human magnet syndrome that brings us together with the narcissist. So if you want to ask yourself, why do you stay with the gaslighter? I think the bigger question is to first ask, why were you attracted to one? Why did you miss all the obvious red flags? And why, when you had a chance to leave, did you stay? Then, once you understand that, then it's important to understand what is not your fault. And that is the abuse, the neglect, and of course, the gaslighting. And that comes after the previous questions are answered. Dynamite Dill, self-love recovery is difficult. That is why I created my treatment program, otherwise known as the Codependency Cure. It's a 11-stage, deeply thought out, organized treatment program that can overcome the problem permanently. If you want to know more about it, go to selfloverecovery.com and check out the educational resources. Irene, how do you recognize when you're being guilt tripped? Well, I believe that the best way is to identify when you feel guilty. I created a saying a long time ago, and I'll read it to you guys. Guilt informs us of our mistakes, whether intentional or not. Although painful, it reminds us of what to do differently in the future. On the contrary, guilt trips are gaslighting-infused mandates that shame you into believing you and your mistake are one and the same. Let yourself feel bad only long enough to grow and learn from your mistakes. So guilt trips cannot work with people who are self-love abundant, or in other words, they don't work on people that are not codependent or SLDs, because you identify that they are manipulations. And if someone at a store tries to overcharge me for something and I see the price tag, well, I know it. And then I will immediately get upset, not do anything. I'll walk away, talk to the manager because I saw it. If you are an SLD, you're not going to see it and then fall victim to it. Okay, guys, I am looking for, again, all of this material is deeply and specifically talked about in my educational seminars. The human magnet syndrome is explaining why we fall victim to narcissists. And it's a really good book that I think it sold 135,000 copies. So, and it's in 10 languages. So it's an important book. And then everything that came after it is my codependency cure work that explains it more in depth and discusses my treatment program, my self-love recovery treatment program, which I believe is the only cure for codependency. I promise you that is going to be incredibly valuable. And I say this because I do offer psychotherapy. I have a waiting list, but I'm very expensive. I only work a couple days a week, and I'm just doing so many other things. And I have as I said, I have a waiting list. But considering the waiting list and the expense, if you buy a 6-hour educational seminar, I am the same way in my educational seminars as I am in my YouTube videos. They are filled with information, and each of the seminars come with a very detailed handout. And if you can't afford therapy, or if your therapist is not any good or not good enough, this might be the only way to find a solution. Ideally, the best plan is to find a therapist that is open to my work, offer to either buy the therapist or ask if the therapist will buy my Human Magnet Syndrome book, and ask them if they will consider looking at the educational resources, because I create them. I develop them so they are accessible to people who are the general public and professionals. That's the answer to so much of your questions. And it's the gaslighting happens to SLDs, and you can't fight gaslighting if you're an SLD. You can only fight SLDD, self-love deficit disorder. Overcome self-love deficit disorder, not only will you not be attracted to gaslighters, but if you are with one, you will know how to escape it, although difficult and challenging. Looking for questions. Remember, if you're going to ask a question, end it with a question mark. Is it possible that can you gaslight yourself? No. And yes. If gaslighting is to convince a person that they have a problem that never existed or was only a minor problem, to systematically manipulate the environment to prove to them they have this problem that didn't exist. And once they believe it, then they become more incapacitated, more isolated, and more dependent on the gaslighter. And as they become more and more gaslit, sicker and sicker, and more dependent on the gaslighter, more isolated, then they can't escape. And that is the reason for gaslighting. So to do that to yourself is not possible. But if you have already been gaslit, or if you are an SLD, it is possible to believe that what someone has gaslit you to believe, say, no one will love you, you're too tall, you're too heavy, you're too skinny, you're not smart enough, you're, have the wrong color skin, the way your eyes look. I'm just thinking of anything, that a narcissist would try to point out that are normal and not that no one should ever take exception to. But if they can make you feel that something is a problem and get you to realize how bad it is, then they have you. And to break free, you must learn as much as you can, find out what it is that they do and how your self-love deficit disorder makes it possible. Again, I have tons of resources, selfloverecovery.com, and my book. I'm not trying, of course, this is my job, and I won't lie to you. I do well, knock on wood. I'm not here to make money. I'm here to answer your questions. And there is no simple answer when about how to stop a problem if you focus on the problem or the person creating the problem when the origins of the problem rest in you. That whole concept is why the Human Magnet Syndrome book is so important. And because the Human Magnet Syndrome are ideas that mainly talk about why these relationships happen, which is crucial reading, everything else that I've created that eventually is going to be in my next book. And you know what? I've been talking about it forever, and I'm planning to write it in 6 months. That's where these educational seminars come into play. I take those seminars real seriously. I just created one. I did a 3 series over the last year. It took me a year to write 3 18-hour, 3 6-hour seminars. And I took 3 to 4 or 5 months on each one, because I'm not just trying to write something to make a couple bucks. I'm trying to change the world. And I don't write about what everyone else knows. I create and write about what I know that is unique to helping people, because it helped me. Okay, questions here. Can you go back to being codependent? The reason I call the codependency cure that name is because if you understand codependency, which is self-love deficit disorder, as coming from, and this goes to the pyramid, and I have a video on the pyramid. Core attachment trauma is abuse and neglect by your parents, narcissistic parents as a child. Core shame, pathological loneliness, SLDD addiction, and the top of the pyramid is all the problems you describe as codependent. If most therapists only know how to work on the symptoms, and you can never solve it, but if you want it to go away and you solve it at the core, it's a cure. It doesn't come back. If you have an infection and someone gives you an antibiotic, and that antibiotic wipes out the bad stuff. Unfortunately, sometimes it wipes out the good stuff, but that's not part of my discussion. That infection will not, that is gone. It will take the introduction of something else that's infectious to get it going. Well, it's the same thing with my codependency cure. If you solve the problem at the core, then it won't happen again, because people who were once self-love deficient, codependents, have their attachment trauma, their core shame, their pathological loneliness, and their SLDD or codependency addiction solved, and they experience what they should have experienced if they had healthy parents, self-love abundance. They protect that like the only thing that they probably would protect more is a child, and so there's no relapse. It's permanent. Oink Kiki. Could pathological loneliness come from abandonment, betrayal from your parents? Yes, Oink Kiki. Read the Human Magnet Syndrome and it'll explain. I have a whole chapter, 28 pages, that explains how SLDD or codependency started. Pathological loneliness is a symptom of codependency or SLDD. So SLDD comes from attachment trauma, which is abandonment and betrayal from your parents, except I don't use that term specifically because I look at attachment trauma as being larger in scope. Again, if you have a question, please end it with a question mark. Could the pathological loneliness, oh wait, I already answered that one. Well, thank you, Angela. I appreciate your affirmation about my book. I'm going to, looking for just a few more questions. So for some of you who just joined, this all started with the latest YouTube video I just released, which is, I don't know the title, I should, but it's, I did it. But basically, it's about how guilt trips are actually a form of gaslighting used by pathological narcissists to control you. So please look at that. So Dynamite Dill, can you do a video on betrayal, trauma, and narcissist abuse? I have many, many videos on that on YouTube already. I don't know. So look at what I have. But I have these full-length educational seminars. I can only give so much free information on YouTube. I try to do it, and I've been doing it for almost 10 years. But if you want the detailed information that is going to help you understand and overcome something, YouTube videos are not enough. So look on YouTube to see the videos that can help you, but consider the educational seminars at selfloverecovery.com. Where do I find your full view on attachment trauma? Human magnet syndrome. I describe it in detail. And the origins of codependency. It is a 25-page chapter, and it talks about that and more. And then I talk about it at a deeper level in my codependency cure material, which is only available in downloadable videos or audio at selfloverecovery.com. You're welcome. Hi. I appreciate your kind comments, and I hope my work reaches Poland and goes beyond that. I'm grateful and I feel blessed because my book is written in 10 languages, and it seems like the whole world needs to know this information. Randall, where does the silent treatment fit into this? Well, Randall, I think the question goes back to why is someone giving you silent treatment? If it is a narcissist who is doing that to punish you, or someone who's just generally unhealthy, not everyone is a pathological narcissist that does hurtful things, is to ask, why are you in a relationship with someone who is passive aggressive? And that's what silent treatment is, who's trying to punish you without ever communicating what they're doing. So again, everything goes back to the person, the SLD, the codependent. So if you are in a relationship where someone uses silent treatment to control you, that is manipulative. And if that person is unwilling to take responsibility, cannot take responsibility, blames you for their problem, they're a pathological narcissist, and they likely have a personality disorder, which means there's no chance for them ever to get help. And if that's the case, you're involved in a human magnet syndrome compelled relationship. And the only way to understand this is not to understand why they're doing it, but to understand how and why you got into a relationship with them, and to learn how to extract yourself. Chris, do you find narcissists often use guilt trips around the topic of finances? I think, Chris, that the best answer to that is narcissists use any manipulative strategy to get what they want. One strategy is gaslighting. Not all narcissists gaslight, but if a narcissist is trying to manipulate you about finances, the most effective way is to gaslight you, is to brainwash you, to make you think that you don't have a right to know that you are causing problems that they're causing, and therefore that is very dangerous, because if they can brainwash you about the money, then they effectively are isolating you and trapping you, because without finances, and if it's gaslit, it means they're lying and you believe the lie. How can someone escape, especially if it's a marriage and you require money for an attorney? I'm going to take two more questions. Well, that's a deep one. Is guilt trip gaslighting a result of conscious feelings of guilt held by the NPD for the acts of exploitation, or is it subconscious? Okay, so to understand guilt trips, according to my description of the video, which is how this all started, is pathological narcissists who are in relationships with SLDs or codependents. That's explained by my Human Magnet Syndrome book and material. And therefore, if then I explain, and I have a 4.5-hour seminar just on gaslighting at selfloverecovery.com. And what I explain there and in other places that gaslighters are either sociopaths or covert narcissists. And I say that because they know what they're doing. They are conscious of it. They are strategically planful. So it is not a subconscious process or unconscious process. There are other elements of their narcissism are unconscious, but not the gaslighting. I am taking one more question, and I'll take it from Layla. Considering the state of affairs in social media, many experts are now stating that they believe the number of NPDs are higher, 1 in 5 people. Some say 1 in 4. What do you say? I say that the numbers are the same, but because of the changes in the political environment and the manipulators, the narcissists, that are politicians that come from both sides, or the folks that are putting out lies and mistruths or fake news and preying upon people's weaknesses, such as being self-love deficient, they are creating an explosion of harm. And that harm goes to the individual person, whether it's about the purposeful misrepresentation of the science related to vaccines, and the unfortunate tragic deaths of thousands of people because of that. And I know that's off topic, but it isn't really. So that comes from politics, where people are trying to win and they're more concerned about other people. So it really is a discussion of pathological narcissism. I described in a video a long time ago, and I took it off because I got death threats, where I said that when a president is a pathological narcissist and does not criticize, but encourages dishonest, harmful behavior, he gives permission, or she gives permission, for the criminals in our society, the narcissists in our society, to come out of the shadows. And I created that video almost 6 years ago. And I said, the problem is not people that are in office. It's that they give a voice to people that otherwise would stay in the shadows because they know society is onto them. They won't condone harmful behavior. They won't condone bigotry and racism, hate crimes, strategies that are purposely to demean certain people. So the long version of my answer, and I'm trying to be concise, is that the same amount of narcissists have always been around. The current political climate has made it safe for the narcissist to come out in the open and to flourish. Think about it. 10 years ago, you might have disliked our president. And I'm not here to talk about one president or another, because I think in some ways they're all narcissists. But 10 years ago, there was a different type of leadership, good or bad. That's not my point. And that when that changed and the new leadership came on, and this could be whether it's your congressman, your senator, your governor, your mayor, it gave permission, it made it seem safer for narcissists to start expressing their opinions because they saw those same opinions expressed in the mainstream media. And therefore they came out of the shadows. And now everyone is struggling with people at higher levels of power, whether it's Brazil, whether it's some of the nations in Africa, where now there are people at higher positions who only have one person that they care about, is being elected and what will keep them elected and help them maintain their narcissistic supply. So what they do is they pander to people that they can get to agree with or who are manipulatable. So all of these people who are pathological narcissists or who are on the narcissistic side of my continuum, they feel safer to vocalize their opinion. Another example, and there's hundreds of examples, is we look at airplane flights. There is an explosion of violence on airplane flights that has never been witnessed in the history of aviation, where people are being combative, aggressive, assaulting people because they feel they have a right to violate federal laws on aviation. Those people, for the most part, believe their right over their opinion supersedes the right of others. That's narcissistic. It's not their individual point of view. Everyone can have their own point of view and they can live and die by it. But the person who believes so strongly about that right and is told otherwise, and if they are pathologically narcissistic, they have a narcissistic injury and explode and beat up people and do stuff that never happened before or happened so rarely. And it is because these narcissists, I'm not talking about vaccination or not vaccination, I'm talking about narcissists. Because again, I know a lot of good people that don't want to be vaccinated. I happen to have another opinion. Again, I don't really care about that in this point. Is if you are here in your media or your elected official that you should not have a vaccine and it's not based upon truth. And I'm not here to say what's true and what's not. But let's assume that a person's decision to not be vaccinated is not based upon truth and they believe that lie. And then and if they are pathologically narcissistic, and that's what I'm talking about, is people that believe a lie who are pathologically narcissistic, then they have narcissistic injuries when people tell them what to do. And that is why we are seeing all of this violence and these hate crimes, because these narcissists are coming out of the shadows because now there are elected officials who are speaking their language, who are promoting their point of view. So if we want to say that, and we go back to your question, Layla, are there more narcissists now? Absolutely not. But it's a hell of a lot safer for a person to be narcissistically harmful in public and either get away with it because there is so many other layers of society that are doing it or they're trying to emulate. So no, there is no change in narcissism. There's just an environment where it's safer to express it and not be seen as mentally impaired. Because back before this wave 10, 15 years ago, again, it's not Democrat or Republican, there was this societal belief that you cannot hurt others based upon your individual opinion, that there were rules, there were mores. So that's my speech on that. And I don't have a comment about vaccines. Actually, I do. Get your freaking vaccines because you're going to save the lives of other people. If you don't care about yourself, at least save your neighbor. Because I'm tired of being trapped in my house because of all this. Okay, I'm going to be deleting this video, so all my crazy ideas and opinions are not going to be accessible. But here you got it, and I didn't plan on it. And if you don't like me because of it, please go back to why you're listening to me. It's about pathological narcissism, codependency, self-love deficiency, and overcoming gaslighting. And forget all the political stuff because I don't usually like to talk about it. I don't want to answer questions or comment on what you say because there are people there that are backing me up and people that aren't. I don't really care. I just wanted to take this time to explain my opinion of the question that Layla had. Are there more narcissists than there used to be? No, it's just safer to be one. Okay, guys, I got way off track. I apologize. hopefully you can oversee that. And let's get back on becoming the cure, self-love abundant. If you follow my human magnet syndrome work and the cure, which is described in my self-love recovery treatment program, and all of that information and more is available in detail in the educational information I have at selfloverecovery.com, you're going to have a chance to escape the gaslighting, the abuse, or the chronic sadness and disappointment you have in your life. You guys are awesome. Thank you for following me. Thank you for considering my opinions. And I hope that you guys can find a way to take better care of yourself and live your birthright for self-love abundance. It's never too late to be the person you should have been. All right, you take care. Bye-bye.